Good.
Perfect. Thanks.
Is that background? Can you hear that background noise? It's a radio downstairs. I can turn it down if I have to.
No, I don't hear it right now. So I think we're okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
No problemo.
Well, this weekend, obviously, we'll be racing in Talladega, but it will also be your first Father's Day. So talk to us a little bit about just kind of experience and how things are going.
Let me get you fixed up here. It's my first Zoom. As anybody that has a kid would know, it is a lot of work. And you don't really know what you sign up for. You think you kind of know, but you don't really know. It's so much. It's a lot of work, but it's also so fulfilling. Just seeing that little guy get older and like start to recognize you, recognize his mom, and start to interact with you. That's when it really gets fun.
All right, we're gonna start with questions for media who have a question. Please, just a friendly reminder, feel free to use the raise your hand option within the Zoom platform, or feel free to send us a message within the chat. We'll be sure to look there as well. So we will now take questions for Corey. If you have one, please just let us know. We're going to start with Jeff Gluck. Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, Corey, you put out your statement yesterday on Twitter about everything with Denny. Do you feel comfortable with where things are at now? Have you heard any response from that, or do you expect to hear anything?
Body on your end, Jeff? Or
oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
I think it might be.
I've been trying to stay off social media. That's gotten me to stick my. You know, it was and I didn't.
You're not coming through there, Corey. I don't know if it's the same for everybody else, but Amanda, can you?
Yeah, Corey, you're a little bit spotty.
All right, give me 30.
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry for this, friend.
Oh, you're fine. We totally understand. Finding a good signal is not always the process.
Metal buildings aren't conducive for good signal here. It's the joy of seating.
You seem better now. Anyway, I couldn't hear any of your answer. Do you want me to ask that question again? You good?
Yeah, re-ask yours because I only heard bits and pieces, and I was just gonna take it.
So basically, I was just wondering, you posted your statement about Denny. Have you heard anything back? Do you expect to hear anything? And if not, are you comfortable with where things stand now?
I mean, I could sleep at night, and I think that it didn't even get to a point where I still felt like I was in the wrong per se, but it got to a point where when I would listen to it back, I felt convicted about how I was handling it, whether or not it was tit for tat or whatever. And it just got to the point where I listened to myself back on what I was saying and how I was saying things that I was questioning who that guy was, because that person that has been on the podcast the last week really wasn't who I was. That wasn't how I treat people. That wasn't what I call people. That wasn't how I deal with issues. And I guess because I felt threatened or offended in a certain way, I felt like I had to act a certain way. And regardless of what was said by both sides, I finally got to the point where I was convicted to just stop it on my end. We didn't come to a mutual agreement by any means. It was just a point where me personally, I was over it. I was over carrying that burden of wanting to stick up for myself, because I just wanted to drive race cars at the end of the day. And when it morphed in, when it changed from me sticking up for myself when somebody else subtweeted on my stuff, when it morphed into me picking up stones and throwing them back, that's when I had to listen to it back and I had to stop it.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take our next question from Bob Pockers. Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, I have two. The first, kind of following up on Jeff, I guess the question is, why apologize? Like, was there something that really made you feel like I need to apologize for?
The thing that I really wanted to apologize for is calling the guy names. I don't want anybody calling me names. And I think that was childish. Whether, people can listen to the podcast and, hear what I said, whether it be, I called him two different things that I was disappointed in myself. I wasn't apologizing for anything else. I feel like up to that point, sometimes I'm honest to a fault, and sometimes I should leave things unsaid. The details of it, and I hold the key. Making up some sort of details about the story, which my camera roll will say otherwise, but those can stay tucked away for as long as this deal wants to stay tucked away for. So I'm good with it.
And NASCAR is going to allow drivers to have one significant other at the race this weekend. How do you feel that? Is that important to you, and is it important to drivers as a whole?
I know it's important for drivers as a whole. For me in particular, my wife's just going to stay home with the kid just because he's 3 months, and it's a little bit of a hassle to lug the motorhome down to wherever the race is. It's really just easy to fly in and fly out the day of for me. Do I miss them there? Yeah, but they'll be home. They'll be there when I get home. So, but I know, with guys that have younger kids that like being at the racetrack and seeing the other kids hanging out in the driver owner lot, I know that should be. It'll be well received being able to bring your spouse or wife or kids to the track for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take our next question from Steven at 24/7 Sports. Go ahead.
Corey, this is our first race in a super speedway since Daytona in February, and since then, and since the accident at the end of the Daytona 500, there have been a couple of rule changes that have been made in the interest of safety. How do you think those rules will change the way the racing is? And second off, how do you think the memory of the accident at the end of the 500 is going to alter the way drivers race, if it does at all?
I won't. It's in some cases, drivers are like elephants and they don't forget. And in some instances, drivers can forget what they had for lunch. And, when it comes to an incident like what happened at Daytona, you don't let that change any move you're going to make, especially when you're getting down to it and you're racing for the win. So, you kind of leave the safety of the cars up to NASCAR and John Padalecki and those guys. Probes do a great job with evaluating the data they have at hand and making our cars safer, as well as the competition as close as they reasonably can. I think looking at it with a little bit less horsepower, a little bit less drag with the nose ducts. I think the closing race will be less. The ability to push somebody will probably be less because that bubble that everybody talks about will be between the cars a little bit more relative than it had been with the nose ducts that can escape that pocket. And I think that when you get down to it and have to start positioning yourself in different gaps, it's going to be a little bit more technical because you won't have that horsepower to overcome any sort of misjudgment, I guess. So guys that are going to be racing for wins, I hopefully it doesn't get to where the leader can control the line. The lanes can have big momentum runs without the leader controlling back and forth, the top and the bottom. And I think you might be able to do that a little bit easier, but I think with the big spoiler and the cars poking such a big hole in the ground, the lines are still going to build momentum, and it'll be tough for those leaders to control it.
Got it. Thank you.
Next, we're going to take our question from Claire B. Lang. Claire, go ahead.
Hey, Claire.
Unmuted now. Thank you. Hi.
I hear you.
It's always said that Talladega is a track that you have to sort of think through like a chess match. On the other hand, and you were asked about Daytona and you said that that wouldn't ruffle your feathers. Is it also something where you can't overthink it, that somehow you have to instinctively feel some of it? And if you overthink it, they say sometimes it doesn't bode well?
That's a good question. You don't have really time to overthink it. You can try to play out different scenarios in your head. And granted, I've never been in a situation where I'm, I've been close to the front of the speedway. I've been to where, coming out to the white, the 500, I was running third, and then, things shake up. So every situation is different, and you can try to play something through your head, but it is split-second decisions. And your outcome really is related to other guys' decisions around you. A lot of the times where somebody in front of you makes a move and you choose to go with them or you choose not to, and there's thousands of moves throughout the course of the race that you can position your car. You can choose one or the other, right? Or you can choose. There's one of three options you can do usually, and you hope that the combination of all those choices throughout the race can position you, and you made enough friends throughout the race, or you show what your car is able to do, and somebody will work with you on the last lap or two to push you to the win or push you to a good finish. Because when you're sitting out there you don't get to the front without some help, and you also don't stay in the front for a long period of time without somebody working with you.
And a quick follow-up on another topic. With the whole thing with Denny Hamlin, has there ever been a feeling in the garage where the guys that are up here, when you come in, you're sort of racing here, that even though you have a lot of talent, that you shouldn't speak up, or that's kind of not your place? Because you've risen above that a little bit, just what you do, a podcast, saying what you think.
Yeah. I mean, I do think there's a little bit of that. I mean, but I don't want to assume. I don't want to assume what people think. I don't want to assume. The only person I can control is me. And I made some decisions over the past 10 days that I didn't like. Just, whether or not I was. It was like this realization where what I thought was tit for tat going upwards, it was tit for tat digging each other into a hole. And for me, I don't speak for anybody else, but for me, the only way that I saw ending the deal with any sort of integrity left or character that I would like to hold myself to was to issue that and apologize for things that I was truly sorry for. I wasn't sorry for sticking up for myself, and I wasn't sorry for saying some of the things I said in my podcast, but there were a couple things with names that I called them that I truly was sorry about, because I don't like calling people names. I mean, that's just, I was raised not to do that. I got caught up in the emotion. Like I said in the statement, it was the energy of the fans, right? You kind of feel like you're pumped up a little bit. And when it morphed from being subtweeted at, sticking up for myself per fact, then when your other competitors are, texting you, stick up for yourself and show them, post those things, say those things, then you all of a sudden you think you're fighting this fight for everybody else, and that's not my fight. And once I realized that, I just like, you know what, I'm done. He might not be done. He might not consider it done. He might consider that I got to pay for things that I've done or whatever, which might be the case. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm worried about Talladega, and I'm worried about trying to get it going forward.
Good luck this weekend. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Claire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll take our next question from Jerry with NBC Sports. Jerry, go ahead.
Thank you. Hey, Corey, how you doing? Hey, quick question. Denny tweeted that he says, quote, "I think we're okay now." Are you guys at a point now where you and he will or should get together before the race and talk this out even more in person, or not?
I don't know. I mean, did I run my mouth a little bit more than what I probably should have? Yeah. Did he say things? Did he do things that he probably regretted? Yeah, like that's how we got into this situation. We are both grown-ups. We both have kids, right? We both have jobs and livelihoods that are bigger than this little tiff we have going on, right? Like we might think it's bigger because there's pride and ego involved, but at the end of the day, he's got his people he's got to answer to, and he's got his mission of trying to win races and championships. And I've got my mission of trying to do a good job for my team and eventually, hopefully getting a more competitive car and keep working my way up the ladder, and everybody is on that same page. And I personally learned a lot through it. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about, I've never been in a situation like this. I've never really had to stick up for myself on a level like this. And I didn't when I realized I was using the platforms that MRN and NASCAR in a sense, since they own MRN, they afford me the opportunity to have a podcast, which I love. And I love talking about the sport. I love talking about the ins and outs of it, the business of it, because I've grown up in it and I love it. But when I realized, and whether or not some people on my side can say I still had the right to say my side, but it turned into something where I didn't feel like I was using my platform for positivity. And and there's enough negativity in the world going on, as we all can agree on. I certainly don't want to aid any negativity, especially on my platforms, whether it be social media or on Sirius XM radio or on my podcast, because that's not who I am. I'm a fierce competitor. I stick up for what I believe in. I'm a friend to people who want to be friends with me, and I'm trying to be a good dad and a good husband. Like that's just what it is.
I haven't caught this. Has NASCAR talked to you about this and Denny at all or not?
So ask that again.
Has NASCAR talked to either you or I should say you and Denny both about this little thing that's been going on?
Yeah. Last week we had a meeting when there was some things that came to a head that they had to address, and then should I have let it die after that meeting? Probably so. But I didn't. I just felt like I had to, like I was trying to breeze over it, trying to say, hey, there were some private messages exchanged. NASCAR had to get in the middle of it. We talked about it and moved on. And that's kind of how I was trying to frame it up in my podcast. But then, I for whatever reason, I elaborated more on than I should have. And, it ended up making a story. I think Denny and I could both agree that we were both in the wrong. And I finally just had to eat it, whether or not I still had a leg to stand on in the argument. We moved on from what the original points of the argument was. So that's when I was like, what, like, the hell are we doing here? But you get it's easy to get caught up in it. It's easy to get caught up in emotion. It's easy to get from one point to the next point and not know how you got there in between and be like, oh shoot, now I'm in a hole I can't really get out of. So, do I think NASCAR needs this? NASCAR doesn't patrol Twitter, and they don't call meetings because two people are beefing in their subtweet section, right? Their stuff has to escalate to a point where if they were worried about it bleeding over onto the racetrack, and let's hope it doesn't. That's I'm probably talking about it more than I would be recommended to, but I just wanted to say my piece with it, because as far as I'm concerned, I said what I've said. I've apologized for what I feel bad for, and I just want to go to the racetrack and go racing.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yep, thanks, Jerry.
Okay, we'll take our next question from Tucker. Tucker, go ahead.
All right, Corey, the late Barney Hall used to say, like, we don't race anywhere in the world like we do at Talladega. Slightly paraphrased, of course, but given that we do the same style of racing at Daytona, realistically, what difference is there between the racing at Daytona and Talladega?
You guys want to see a two-time Xfinity Series champion? There he is.
Just like that.
I'm sorry. I was making sure he didn't dump water on me or something, so I had to keep my eyes out peeled. So what was your question again?
I said, like, the late Barney Hall, you can say that we don't race anywhere in the world like we do at Talladega, but given that we also do the same style of racing at Daytona, like, realistically, what difference is there between racing at Daytona versus Talladega?
It's crazy to think that the extra 0.16 miles that Talladega is versus Daytona might as well be an extra half mile because it's so much more wide than Daytona is. It's not quite as temperature sensitive because the banking, I think, is a little bit more at Talladega. The overall racing groove's wider at Talladega, so it feels like there's more weight in actual drafting strategy as opposed to mechanical handling like we see at Daytona sometimes. So that's why it is so unique. Daytona, sometimes when it's hot and greasy and slick like we had it during the July race, now in August or September, whenever it is, handling comes into play and guys will start lifting. But the only time you're lifting really at Talladega is because you're trying to create some momentum, trying to create a run, trying to back yourself up to the guy in front of you, and try to get your line moving. So it's a Daytona and Talladega are relatively similar to the eye test on TV, but in terms of drive, in terms of strategy, it is a little bit different.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Tucker.
All right, Corey. Well, we appreciate your time today. We wish you the best of luck this weekend in Talladega. Happy first Father's Day as well. And we look forward to talking with you again soon.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Talk good about me.